Hey everybody, I know you can't see me right now. I know it might be a little noisy in the background, but this is the beginning of our solar issue video. We've had issues before. We've already replaced our batteries. Now we're having solar component issues, and it's nighttime, and we're charging our batteries individually right now because we have a 24-volt system, so we can't just throw a charger on it. So we're charging individual cells, trying to keep our batteries happy because it's been cloudy the last couple days. Welcome, join us. Sorry about the poopy lighting.
Hey Aaron.
Hey, how's it going?
How's it going, bud?
Oh, you know, hanging out with some generators, drinking some peanut butter whiskey.
It's good to see you, pal. Hi, love.
Oh, you don't want to put that on me right now.
Oh, why not? You're so pretty in this light.
Charging your batteries with petrochemical means in the hot Arizona desert, right? In December?
Yeah.
True story.
Almost 2,300 watts on the roof, and doesn't really do us any good. Let's be clear, the solar panels do a great job, but you know, it's only part of the system. So, this is why we ran tail down to Arizona. Not just to get ahead of the storm, because you know, bad weather sucks, but because we couldn't hang out in the bad weather because our system didn't want to support itself. We have an AIM 6,000 watt inverter charger, and that bad boy is currently the issue. So it's not charging when on shore power. So when we're in solar, we're fine. If it's sunny, no problem. We have 2,285 watts on the roof. No matter which way we're parked, one bank is facing it good. We're usually pulling anywhere between 800 and 1,000 watts. So no problems there. When it's cloudy for a few days, we need to plug in. Not working. So the whole trip down, if you watched the last video, we kind of touched on it. It just wasn't working. We'd get like 10% out of plugging in, but it wouldn't top off, where it should top off completely, and it wasn't. That happened a couple times, and then the last time we plugged in, it didn't charge at all. Sat plugged in all night long, connected, no issues with the connection, just didn't charge. So now we're down in the desert freaking out because this is our second set of batteries. That's almost $4,000 in batteries under there that we can't replace currently. So, trying to save them. Yay! Welcome to our solar issues. Good morning, everyone. Today is the day. It's kind of like Christmas, but not so much because we paid a ridiculous amount for it and Santa didn't bring it to us. But we are gonna go get the major portion of our solar components from the post office right now. Let's go! If you all don't know, this is Aaron. We've met up many times. Broccoli Bus 6, Solar Genius, Electrical Savant.
AKA Victron Claus. Ho, ho, ho!
Merry Christmas, honey! Not Aaron, honey.
Oh.
Sorry, Merry Christmas, Aaron. It's not for you, though. You should get to play with it.
Yeah.
Well, we made it back.
Oh, look, packing peanuts. Ooh.
Should we get some gasoline?
Ooh. Engine charging.
Ooh.
Happy birthday.
Oh, yeah.
Controller.
Make some guards.
Oh, God.
Oh, God.
Yeah, you have to
Oh, God.
Solar controller. These are the melty kind.
guards for your plate.
Yeah.
You can eat these.
But I need...
So, AC in is from the pedestal power, shore power. AC out 2, I believe, is your inverter output
Oh, yes, so
and power assist output. And AC out 1 is pass through, aka the inverter never touches this power, it just connects directly from the power pedestal, so it's only powered when you're plugged in.
Please don't break this.
So that's how that works.
Sweet.
Today is day one of many days. Well, hopefully not many days. A couple of days.
We are a week after the last check-in, and we finally have everything we need. So the couch is all torn apart. This is all getting torn apart, and all of that, all of that, along with
Sorry, I thought that was going to be a lot difficult.
never mind. Progress over video, I guess. Anyway, a bunch of stuff's coming out, a bunch of stuff's going in. I'll check in with you when it's done.
This one this way?
Yeah, hold on.
Going. Hold it.
Okay.
This is how you really get into your work.
Really into this work, guys.
This, not this
The
guy?
one with all the different bits that, you know.
Actually, that's quite handy.
Yeah. Please hand me another.
Yep. Look at that blue goodness. That's all nice and cleaned up. We got the Smurf tube
Yeah,
off.
it just barely lines up with the plywood, so it's totally. Let's put those bottom screws in.
Beautiful.
How perfect is that?
Hey Aaron, what are you doing?
Well, you see, I cut this wire a little short, so we'll make it work.
Custom wires.
Custom bus bar. I call this my desert bus bar special because I don't have the tools to make a real bus bar.
Nice.
So we'll just make a little terminal for it.
Very, very close. Major components are replaced. The panels are plugged back in. The batteries are doing an equalized charge. And we have some of the major wiring left and some of the minor wiring left. And everything's looking really good. It's working as it should for right now. I have this handy dandy little tool that tells me batteries at 100% voltage, equalizing at 31.97, 673 watts coming in. I just went and cleaned the panels of the desert dust. So I've got all these handy dandy little apps
All
to
kinds of fun info.
really give us the breakdown of what exactly is going on in this magical little solar box.
Kerbang and sparks fly everywhere as all the metal turns into molten metal, or it's not going to at all
All right.
do nothing. So I'm going to put the covers over the fuses.
Googly eyes, googly eyes, googly eyes.
All four
Googly eyes.
screws. Thankfully, you found the last one.
Yay!
We have power! Yay! All the 12, 24 is all hooked up now. I don't even know what to say. We've told Aaron thank you like 1,000 times. We're gonna have to stuff another loaf of sourdough down his throat. Here's more! He now has this permanent spot on our bus. Whenever he comes over, we're gonna have to move stuff so he can sit like this.
Oh no.
The bus is running not because we are leaving, but because we are charging from it.
So great.
DC power subsystem. See it?
Yep.
See how the wire's coming out? 400 watts out of the DC subsystem into the batteries.
400
Kinda
watts?
bouncing back and forth. Yeah, roughly. It's kind of moving around.
Still,
So what's the
it's better than a cloudy day.
lock?
So for a long time, we thought about and wanted to install a second alternator that was 24 volt that could charge our batteries. But with the Victron setup, they have this wonderful little doohickey that,
draws your battery.
It's a 12 to 24 volt charger. So while the bus runs and we're driving, it'll charge. And then when we turn it off, now it decides that it wants to charge our battery bank off the bus batteries. That's not gonna work. So Aaron's tearing it apart right now so that it doesn't drain our batteries overnight. And we'll figure it out tomorrow, if we're lucky. Okay, yet another check-in. I know for you guys it's just a bunch of jump cuts and we're just getting stuff done and things are changing. And well, there was a lot going on during this whole process, and obviously there's not a ton of room in here because, well, it's a bus. So I did my best to kind of stay out of the way, try and get establishing shots of updates and what was going on, and then slap it all together so you could get a rough idea of the installation. That being said, it's done. Look at that install. Isn't that beautiful? All thanks to Aaron. I mean, really, we just supported Lily mostly. I stayed out of the way, and you know, Lily just ran and got whatever he needed and gophered for him on parts and stuff, and that's all there is to it. It looks incredible. It's got these cool lights, so when you close the couch, you know, they're off, but when you open the couch and you need to see or get something, because this side is storage as well, then boom, lights on. Ah! So again, we can't thank you enough. Thank you so much, Aaron. We greatly appreciate it. We definitely couldn't have done this without you. Thank you. Now, I need to put this couch back together.
Okay, so the problem is I don't know how technical to get. I don't want to bore you to tears, but I do want to give you enough information that if you are just starting out in your solar, that hopefully this video helps you. Also, I really have to preface this by saying a huge thanks to Aaron and Amanda from Broccoli Bus. Aaron is very knowledgeable on things that are all solar, but you know, he has a full-time job and he has 4 kids and a wife that he always has to help. So the fact that he even offered to donate his time and knowledge to us is immense. And I have to thank Amanda because she held down their fort for 2 solid days while we were getting this done. But without further ado, here's what we have going on now. So it makes the most sense to start from the top down. So on our roof, we have 8 285 watt panels for a total of 2280, I believe. They all come down through the roof right here. They go into this cabinet, then they go over here into the combiner box. So the combiner box takes a set of panels at 48 volts and combines it to 24 volts. Now, those go into the charge controller. Before, we had a Magnum PT100 charge controller, which worked great. We never had an issue with it. However, it was not ideal to have the Magnum and replace it with a Victron. So for communication purposes, this charge controller communicates with the inverter more seamlessly, so we're not having conflicting information going down into the batteries. So this charge controller doesn't have a face on it or anything like that, like the Magnum did, that gives you any information. It is, however, connected to this Victron Venus. Now the Venus takes all of that information and communicates it to an app on my phone. So this app will give me so much information. It gives me graphs in what we consume for energy, what we gain in solar, how our battery life or health is, how much of our battery we've used. It'll give like 30 days worth of information. It logs everything that you need to know to be able to check the status of your batteries, your panels, your components. It's a wealth of information. So we have a 24 volt system. Most systems are 12 volt, but we have 24. Our panels are 24 volt. Our batteries are wired in series and parallel for 24 volt. So we are required to have one of these. This converter will convert 24 volt to 12 volt. So over here we have a 12 volt fuse panel. This one is the 24 volt fuse panel. Now, one of the upgrades that we did was being able to put a shut-off switch for both of these. So rather than going through and pulling each fuse, if there's ever a troubleshooting issue, you just push this red button, poof, 24 volts gone. Push this red button, poof, 12 volt is gone. Another thing that needed being done is for us to clean up our wires on our circuit breaker box for all of our 110 house utilities. And so that has a face on it, but the wires definitely got rerouted. They got reconnected. They also got labeled here. This one is one that hasn't been ran yet, and this one is a spare. But there's also a 30 amp master shutoff switch for this as well. So rather than going through and flipping off each breaker, we can just flip this guy off and it kills the power to all of this. In case you didn't know, a lot of these components require energy themselves and therefore will put off just a little bit of heat. So we drilled some holes in the top here to allow heat to rise and escape. We also have this grate, which is a hole cut into the bottom box, and there's some fabric behind there in this grate which allows air to kind of cycle through too. And then finally, you can't really see it that well, is the Victron 3000 watt inverter charger. The charger part works now, which is what the problem was on our Ames. The charger part wasn't working. So we did kind of downgrade our initial wattage. Our old Ames inverter was 6,000 watts with a 12,000 watt peak, and it was also split phase for our 50 amp shore input. Now, in order to do that exactly the same, this inverter would have been several $1,000s. So we downgraded to a 3,000 watt single phase inverter, which means that we could only have 30 amps in for shore power, and I'll explain how we got around that here in a minute. As you can see, while we were wiring this, everything down here has changed, and I think this is actually one of the greatest improvements. There's a positive bus bar, which has all of the positive connections from the inverter, from the batteries. It all goes right here. And that has a master shutoff switch. Then there's a negative bus bar over here that has all of the negatives. That little shunt is what reads the information from the batteries and sends it up to the other component. Before we had this installed, all of these cables went back and forth into the batteries. We had cables coming up and going down. This really streamlined it in making all of the positives and all of the negatives together. And these are really firm. I mean, you can't really jiggle this around. So I feel like it's much more safe and clean. We also cleaned up this hole. The two holes in there were kind of messy and dangerous. We cut this hole right here so none of the wires are exposed to any metal or anything that's going to jiggle loose out of here. I would still like to put some spray foam in here, but I want to make sure that we are completely finished so that that foam really stays and cures. Now, our inverter used to sit right here, which is where what that old hole is for. And because the Victron inverter is so much more small, we actually gained a bunch of space here. As I mentioned before, this little guy is also an upgrader. It is a DC to DC charger. So it takes the excess battery energy from the bus batteries and uses it to charge the house batteries. It has capability of 380 watts, which should allow for about a 10% improvement in charge over the course of an hour for our system. It was also very reasonably priced. We have not completely installed it yet. We did try and use 8-gauge cable and ran it to the front of the bus through the fuse block that exists in the bus, and it seemed to be too much energy and it warmed up the wires. So we're going to actually upgrade these 8-gauge wires to 6-gauge and a nice big 40 amp fuse just to protect it. Okay, so as I mentioned, the Ames inverter was for 50 amp split phase shore power. So we wanted to keep our 50 amp plug so that we could still plug in at Pop Pop's house, but we didn't want to buy a new plug and run new wires and all of that and then just have a 50 to 30 amp. So In order to downgrade to 30 amp, but still be able to get the Ames 3000 watt single phase inverter, we added a small breaker box, which is right here. So that takes the 50 amp current and splits it right here, and we only end up using one side. And if we ever wanted to upgrade and get 2 inverters, we would simply add a breaker here along with some other things. But it's possible to upgrade in the future should we choose to do so. It's been 2 years and we still have decided that we don't need air conditioning because when it's hot we leave. So I don't really see us upgrading in the future, but this was a nice, nifty, clean, and small way to get around having a 50 amp plug but only having a 30 amp inverter. Also, there used to be an automatic transfer switch in the back there. The transfer switch was supposed to transfer between shore power, a generator, solar, and then take any excess shore and charge the batteries. Needless to say, the way that we had it wired, it was kind of a spaghetti noodly mess. And although I think it was safe and efficient, it wasn't ideal. So the Ames inverter and actually also the Victron inverter both have transfer switches. We didn't know that the Ames already had a transfer switch, so we kind of doubled up there, but we were able to get rid of that by actually knowing that the Victron has a transfer switch built in. So we will be able to plug a generator into our shore outlet. We will be able to plug into shore, and the inverter will read that information and do all of the things necessary to be able to make sure that the batteries still get their juice and we don't even have to flip a switch to do it. Okay, so lastly are the batteries. Now, I haven't cleaned them up yet. They're a little dusty and I need to clean off each terminal. Plus we got a little bit of spray foam on this here terminal. But basically the batteries are just wired to each other. We don't have stacks and stacks and stacks of things going on to each nut like we had before. By having that distribution bar for positive and the distribution for negative, we were able to keep this wiring a lot more simple. And when it's more simple, it's less threatening. It's easier to work on. It's easier to clean up. It's just, there's so many positive things to having this wire simplified. This right here is just a battery temperature sensor, and I still need to plug that in once we get the terminals cleaned up. But the overall take from this is that it's much more simplified down here, which is awesome. Everything that needs to be done, disconnected, reconnected, it can all be done inside, and now I don't have to come down here and mess with battery terminals in order to do anything. So, wonderful. So the components that we have replaced and are selling are a Midnight Solar combiner box with 4 15 amp 600 volt DC fuses pre-wired. It works great. It just doesn't have a master shutoff switch. We are also selling our Magnum PT100 charge controller with the LCD screen and battery temperature sensor. It also works great. In fact, Aaron really had to beat me to actually replace that. We are selling our Ames 6,000, 12,000 watt, 24 volt, 110, 240 split phase inverter charger. Now the charger portion does not work. It still inverts perfectly well though. This might be a great situation for someone in a house that wants to buy house panels and doesn't need to charge batteries but simply suck the sun from the day and feed, you know, their blender and things like that. Let's see. There's one other one. Oh, I think it's WFNO, automatic transfer switch. Again, that is for the inverters that don't already have a transfer switch built in. It will transfer between shore power, generator, and solar without the push of a button, so long as it's wired correctly, of course. And it worked, again, flawlessly for well over a year. So Okay, there you have it. I hope you haven't been bored to tears. If you have any questions, please put them in the comments section, and between Aaron and myself, we can certainly do our best to answer anything that you've got. Or if you have, you know, particular technical details that you'd like help with, I'm more than happy to lend a hand. And if you liked this video, even though it's not like our usuals, definitely click like, subscribe, always leave a comment, guys. It's so much fun to interact with each and every one of you. I know we don't have a bunch of people to talk to, but when you do talk to us, we certainly do enjoy it. So that's it for now. See you at Schoolie Palooza.
Two twins. See? Two twins.
Oh yeah, they're playing jump rope.
1, 3, 2 twins. Oh, I accidentally went on number 6.
You're okay. Keep going.
No, because I meant to do 5. Oh, I only did 5.
You're good. Keep going.
1 book, 2 twins.
Sing it. Say it louder so they can hear you.
I can hear.
1 book, 2 twins. 1 umbrella.
One umbrella.
1 umbrella.
Good job.
2 twins.
Good job.
One umbrella. Bunch twins.